Hi everyone, and welcome to this video on strategies for homework. I wanted to do this video because this is a topic that comes up all the time with parents, and it can cause so much stress in a household and frustration and upset for both parents and children when a child is struggling with some of their homework. So this could be writing, it could be numeracy, it could even just be concentrating for the homework. So the first thing I would say is, if you feel that homework is causing your child too much distress and it's taking too long, you really need to communicate with your child's teacher around how long it's taking, what are the most important things to get done, and are there aspects of the homework that you could do verbally with your child rather than focusing all the time on the writing if that is the skill that your child is finding difficult. Homework really varies as well for kids. Some kids get very little homework, some get no homework, some get lots of homework. And what I think the biggest thing is expectations around that homework. What is the purpose of that part of the homework, and how could you do it in the easiest way for your child, making it fun and motivating so that they don't feel burnt out and that they still have time in the evening to do leisure and play and hang out with friends and do other things apart from sitting down at the table and doing their homework. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some practical tips and strategies that you can do at home to support your child when you're doing homework. But I really emphasize, if you find that it's taking too long and it's causing your child distress, to open up that communication with the teacher, because they might be able to come up with some solutions. They may be able to reduce the homework, and that can really help to reduce the stress for everybody at home. So the first thing I would say is make sure that you have a quiet area set up. This is for both kids in primary school and also in secondary school. Ideally, you would have a desk that is facing a blank wall so that there's very little visual distractions. Obviously, if a child is sitting at the kitchen table and everyone is busily moving around and cooking the dinner, it can be very distracting for them and they can lose concentration easily. I know for some families this can't be prevented, so it's just finding ways around how you can reduce those distractions. The second thing is make sure your child is in a really good seated posture, that they're in a supported seat and that their feet are flat on the ground. Because for kids who are very fidgety, may have sensory processing difficulties or lower muscle tone, if their feet are dangling, they are going to tire easily and they're going to fatigue, especially in motor-based tasks like colouring or writing. So you want to make sure that their feet are flat on the ground, they're in a supported seating position, and that they're at a desk that is facing a blank wall. This is the ideal environmental situation. What you want to do then with the homework is make sure that you take out one task at a time. So even having a checklist can be really good to increase motivation for kids. So you have the checklist of what needs to get done. You can, tick them as you go. Dependent on your child, either starting with something easy to get them into the flow of homework or starting with the hardest thing so that it's done, and then they can move on to something that's a little bit easier. Definitely time how long things are taking, because this will give you an understanding of maybe what aspects your child is finding trickier and what's taking that little bit longer as well. Exercise is key for both kids in primary and in secondary. If you do some exercise, especially those that heighten our extensor muscles, can really help with posture. It can get kids into that just right level that they can focus and learn. So doing things like, if they're older, the plank or circuits, or maybe going to the gym or walking the dog, or for younger kids, it'd be doing some animal walks, maybe jumping on the trampoline, wheelbarrow walks, a tug of war, any of that kind of push, pull, lifting exercises are great. So you can watch the proprioceptive video as well. That's under sensory processing. That'll give you some more ideas around those push and pull and lifting activities that you can do before homework. I'll attach a little sequence that I like to use as well. This is a great one to do every day before homework, and it gets the child's body ready to be able to learn and focus and re-engage with more like tabletop activities. For some kids, They do need some downtime after school, just to like chill and like really recharge before they could do some homework. So this can be great to do a bit of downtime, then do a bit of exercise, and then do their homework. I know for other kids they need to do it straight away, so it's just dependent on your child. But if you're struggling with their tiredness or their fatigue, I would like change it up a little and see what works best for them. The other thing I would say is, make sure if, like I said, with checklist for younger kids of working through it, if motivation is a problem, you try and like praise and encouragement over specific skills. And just, I suppose, for teenagers who are finding it hard to motivate themselves for study, rather than those kind of delayed gratification goals, like if you work hard now, you'll have a great job in the future, try and make it maybe a little bit more shorter. So if you work really hard this week, at the weekend we'll do something, or you can have extra time with your friends, or you know, you can have extra time on your phone, whatever motivates them. And also creating that inner drive that, you know, to do well in school, try and create that motivation around doing well and feeling proud about themselves. Try to not rob out too much work and rewrite it for your child. There's very little learning in that, whereas I feel like if you do more like reviewing and rechecking, so they do a sentence and then, you know, you check it and then you move on to the next one, and then you say, for this one now, could we write more on the line, or giving them a little bit of feedback, but also them coming up with it, what could we do better with this sentence this time, rather than rubbing it out. Frustration is getting high there, rewriting it. And sometimes it's good for their teacher to see how they actually get on, independently completing a task as well. So there's just a few little ones. As I mentioned in the organizational video as well, I think for children who struggle with organizational skills or become overwhelmed with too much to do, I would block out with a piece of paper the rest of the worksheet or the rest of their homework and just focus on one thing at a time. So looking at one thing, getting that done, then moving down the page to the next thing, getting that done. The same with a worksheet, saying let's start with 3 and do them really good, and then we can move it to the next 3. If you feel that your child is struggling with endurance around that task, focus more on quality rather than quantity. And what I mean by that is 2 really good sentences rather than 5 really poorly formed sentences, because the child is frustrated. And if there are aspects of the homework that can be done verbally, do it verbally if possible. If your child is tired and the handwriting is the barrier to their learning, they're shortening their answers, they're getting really upset, do that part verbally and just write a note to the teacher, say we did this verbally, you know, they got all the questions right, or they're struggling with X, Y, and Z. Really, really, really important. The other thing I would say as well is, you know, it is nice to set little things within the homework that you can say, if you get that done, and you can even set a timer, I'll be back to you. So allowing your child, I suppose, to independently complete some of the tasks as well, rather than sitting next to them the whole time. Because sometimes obviously they become reliant on that, and then they need you there to be able to do it. It's different if a child is struggling with a task, obviously then they need your support there as well. If your kid is really fidgety, or if you're a teenager and you're very fidgety, change up your seated position. You could get a standing desk, you could sit on a therapy ball so you can actually bounce as you study. You could you know, have little fidgets that you can pull to increase your concentration, and you can get little sensory cushions that you can sit on, that you can get a little bit of movement without having to get up. So change it up. For some kids, sitting still is really, really hard, and it doesn't mean that they're learning better when they're sitting still. Actually, we all need to move, and even if you monitor your own behavior now, you might be shifting in your chair, you might be, you know, drinking a tea or a coffee. We all need to move, and that helps our brain to actually function and to be able to learn. So, you know, changing it up when they're doing the homework, maybe they can do part of it when they're lying on their tummy, maybe they can walk around when you're asking them questions, you know, maybe they can sit in a bouncy ball for part of it. So changing that up can really, really help as well. So there are just a few little ideas. I know every child is very different, and what motivates them is very different. So some kids are just motivated by, you know, getting it done and getting the praise for it. Other kids need that little bit more motivation, and that's why having a little checklist that they can tick off and working towards something maybe can be really good, but also thinking about what's the purpose of this task within the homework. So if it's a comprehension and, you know, they're really struggling with handwriting and they're shortening their answers, could you do part of that verbally to also test, can they comprehend the written piece? So you really want to look at kind of what's the focus of what you're doing. So yeah, I think they're kind of like the main strategies for around homework, but please, I'm sure you've got so many more that you've used at home. So please comment below with them. I'll attach other extra bits and pieces for you to read up on as well. And if you've any comments or questions, please put them below as well. So I hope you found this video helpful, and I will see you next time.